brilliant. So yeah, the steeplechase was, probably the thing that kept me in the sport for a little bit longer. And just I think that's the beauty of doing endurance running is you can, if you're versatile, you can have a lot of fun with it. I've competed for Great Britain over 1500, 3k steeplechase, 5k. I've run some good road racing. You can, run the cross country. You can be so versatile and just keep it interesting. And that, I'm dead lucky that I had the ability to sort of switch around a little bit and just try something different. So I suppose that was one, when the 1500 was becoming a little bit like stagnant, it gave me something else to do and try, which was really good.
Yeah, a couple of things there. You've mentioned it was a dodgy time. It was dodgy. Were you aware of that at the time, or is it something you've just looked at in retrospect now?
I mean, there's always people chatting about stuff, and I just chose to sort of think, well, unless anything official comes out, I'll believe that everyone I'm lining up against is the same as me and doing it fairly. Because otherwise, it's just it's just too depressing, to be honest with you. And then I guess in retrospect, I've had things pointed out, or I've just seen that people have been given a ban or whatever, and you sort of think, right, okay, even in the steeplechase, I missed the final at the Beijing Olympics by, I think it was like a tenth of a second, but there was Russians in there. There was people who then served bans and stuff, and so you think, well, I would have been an Olympic finalist if those people hadn't been there. And that's, and I can't say that I was an Olympic finalist. So there's stuff like that you think, well, that's disappointing, but it doesn't change that I still had an amazing time doing my athletics and, and some amazing opportunities and enjoyed it. So, as much as it's like annoying, it's like, it doesn't change anything really.
Yeah. What about the steeplechase itself? How much technical work goes into that?
Well, I think I was 32 when I first started it. I'd never jumped over a hurdle like properly in my life, other than like messing around at the track when I was a kid. And for me, that was the hardest bit. Like, I was in shape on the flat, but I found the technical aspect quite challenging in that I stuttered quite a lot into a barrier, and it just used to wind me up quite a lot. So I found it quite frustrating for that reason. So, some people don't have to practice the hurdles that much. I've trained with other steeplechasers on camps and stuff, people like Barbara Parker, just a natural hurdler. She come from a heptathlon background, just didn't even really have to practice the hurdles. It just came natural, whereas I did, because the timing of it was just, I found it so tricky. But I guess that was because it was completely new to me in my 30s. So luckily I was, quite robust in that I, did, always quite strong athlete, always did my gym, and I think my body could deal with doing that event. It's tough. It's a tough event on your body. So we worked quite hard technically, and I went to various people to ask for help, for the hurdling, and tried various different things. And I probably, if I'd have stuck at the event for another couple of years, maybe I would have made a step forward from the time that I ran. But I think I just was like, I think I did it for 3 seasons. And I was ready to move to 5k, 10k after that.
Right. Did you ever fall in the water jump?
I didn't fully fall. You do a few sort of staggers into it. I would often tell the story of my first steeplechase, and I just decided that my first one would be at the Doha Super Grand Prix. So my first ever steeplechase I did in like a big event, and we'd practiced the water jump once beforehand, and my coach John Nuttall, I was like refusing it like a horse would. So in the end, he like ran and jumped the water jump in his like full tracksuit just to prove that I could do it. So I went out. I honest to God, I think I did a full squat every water jump. So like the first 2k was not too bad, time wise. I was like, could run okay here, and then absolutely died on the last k. And I remember walking off the track, ringing John, saying, absolute joke, no way I'm doing this again. I stick to the flat races. But then practice, I'm good friends with Stuart Stokes, and we live quite close to one another, so called him up, and he helped me quite a lot with the water jump. And then the next one, I sort of knocked a massive chunk off just because I'd improved that a little bit. So, that's quite satisfying in that you can work on something and knock a chunk off your time just because you've technically improved. But the first one, it was it was tough.
Yeah, I'll bet.
I think I totally underestimated it as an event, and I have complete respect for anyone who does a steeplechase. It is a tough event.
It's an outlier, isn't it? I always think it's an outlier. Yeah. It looks weird sometimes on the track.
Yeah, I can't actually believe I used to do it. I'm like, I can't believe I jumped over them things. But yeah, it's an interesting event, but it's tough, and it's great that it's becoming more and more competitive, and it's not just sort of, especially for the women, it used to be, if you can't do the 1500, try the steeplechase, whereas now it's like, no, you have to be a good steeplechaser to do well in steeplechase. It doesn't, you can't just sort of try your luck and hope it goes well for a season. I think you've got to fully commit to it, because standard is just on a different level now. So it's that's great to see, and it's great that it's been given more respect over the last few years.
Yeah, sometimes events take a while to mature, don't they? And that's certainly reached it now. Yeah. But do you take that Olympics in Beijing as a success? You got to the semis, you got a GB record.
Yeah, it was. Even though it was a high and a low, it was like finished. I'd run a massive PB, so I'd ran my best race that I'd ever done. And that's what you go to the Olympics. You go to any competition to run the best that you've ever done. So I did that. And it was a British record, so that was really nice. But then, so I remember waiting in the, after you come off the track, so I was in one of the first heats, sort of waiting, and I think I was in anti-doping, sort of waiting, because I'd done a British record, had to go in anti-doping, and then it came on the screen that I'd missed out by a tenth. I was like, oh. But so it was like, I was still, I remember myself and John was sort of like, we were buzzing that I'd achieved what we'd set out to achieve, which was to run my best on that day. But yeah, it was bittersweet, I suppose, to not make the final, because that would have been a great thing to sort of have on your sort of CV.
Yeah. And then you just said already, but I'm sorry to bring it up again, but there was a couple more near misses, wasn't there, coming going forward, like 4th in the next Commonwealth Games in Delhi, 7th in the World Indoors, and you were quite old for an athlete, were you? Spring chicken at that time, I'm really honest with you.
Yeah, so after the Commonwealths in Delhi, I mean, the truth of that one is I went there for the 1500, and when I was there, I hadn't jumped a barrier all season. I turned my ankle earlier in the season, so I just sort of thought, I just said, I'm just going to do 1500, and I made the team sort of on one of the last races. I ran the time for Commonwealths for 1500, so I got picked for 1500. But because I'd done the qualifying time earlier in the season, they were like, you're on the team anyway, we've only got like one person doing the steeple, would you like to do it? And it was like the day after the 1500 final. So I said, well, I'll do it. I said, I'm just gonna have to see how I am. So I'd literally not jumped over a barrier the whole summer. And then I came 4th, and the girl in front of me was like, so I started off really tentatively, and then the Kenyan girl in front of me fell at the last water jump, and I was like, oh my God, I could. And then, so now I'm like, maybe if I'd properly trained for that, I could have got a medal at that Commonwealths. But actually to come 4th was pretty ridiculous, considering that I'd not even gone there to do that event. But yeah, after that Commonwealths, it was a little bit of a turning point for me. I was sort of remember talking to John and saying, what do you reckon? And I'd been, at that point, I'd trained with Trevor Painter for a year. And then I went back to John, who had been my coach most of my athletics career. And I sort of said, look, what do you think about maybe doing a 5K or a 10K with eyes on sort of 2012? And so he said, why don't you come to Kenya? There's like a camp, British Athletics camp. It's a new thing. London Marathon are back in these camps. Like, you could come on it. And so I said, right, I'll come. I'll just do whatever training you're setting for the group. I'm just in, I'll do it. So I went to Kenya, and I feel like it was just like one of them, like an epiphany. It was like, I love the simple nature of it. I just got my head down, got on with the training. It was just basic, good group of guys there to train with. And I just really enjoyed it. And we came back from there, did the Euro Cross, didn't run particularly well. Went back to Kenya again. I think I went on maybe like New Year's Eve or Boxing Day or something. So like pretty much straight back in for January. And we had no real goals to do the indoor season because we were like, no, we're getting ready for 5K in the summer.
Was this the first time that you've been to Kenya or been to some sort of high altitude situation?
I'd done altitude training a lot. We'd mainly gone to Poch actually, when I was running 1500s. But so it's the first sort of higher altitude camp I'd done, and then the first sort of double exposure. So like going in the sort of November and then going again in, I think it was November we went, and then going again in the January. And when I went back in January, I absolutely hit the ground running. And we were like, I said, well, I think we should do indoors. You know, I think I'm in good shape. So it was really a bit of a late decision to do the indoors. And like you say, I was 37, came back from Kenya on the January camp and went and did the Glasgow meet, GB USA sort of indoor meet, and broke the stadium record. Like front ran, I think I front ran about 8:45 or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, you know, we were like running pretty well here, and then just sort of, I think I ran a 1500 in like 4:05 indoors, which was a good time for indoors. And literally, I didn't even feel like I'd run one lap at 1500 meter pace in training, you know. So there was a few things. It just like you say, the stars were aligning. It just worked for me. It was just it just gave me a new lease of life, going there. And obviously the training we were doing suited me, you know, training for the longer stuff really suited me. So that's one of the things, training at a high altitude for the first time and doing 2 camps sort of quite close to one another obviously worked for me. So I think, it was just one of those things that I think, I wish we could have tried that earlier in my career. But you know, it was you know, brilliant, you know, obviously coming back and then, you know, having such a good race at the European Indoor Champs.
I mean, the whole year was the year of your life, really, wasn't it? You know, the year of your
it
career,
was
really.
yeah,
I mean, to go to the
really
European
was.
Indoors, you went to the European Indoors and won the 3,000 meters. You won it. I mean, I'll be honest with you, you weren't one of the stars of the team, but that weekend you were the star of the team.
I think like looking back, I just know that there were so many people like, oh, at last. You've been here all these years sort of on the team, and you know, almost girl quite a lot of it. And you know, I knew everyone quite well, so I think like it was just nice. I think for a lot of my friends in athletics, it was nice that one of us finally sort of did it. You know, and also like just coming home from that, you just sort of, I realized like how many people were sort of in my corner was really nice. You know, even just like people locally, I used to think they must think I was just some sort of weirdo who's always out running, and you know, they just see me, there's that girl who runs all the time. But you know, so many people were like, oh, we saw you run, and that, you know, it was really nice. So I think, like you say, it had been a long time coming to actually get on top of the podium.